Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I am very pleased to have with me Jannie Almond. I'll get it right, Jannie Almond. Let me tell you about Jannie. She helps online coaches and service providers who are experiencing inconsistent 1 to 5K months learn how to scale their business and others in a way where they can continuously add new income into their business without capping out their time and energy through streamlined systems, potent messages, and captivating content that creates unique positioning so that you stand out as an expert and get booked out without using basic templates, copy paste DMs, and sleazy sales tactics. Nobody likes that.
No.
So in her story, which she's going to share with us shortly, she talked about escaping Groundhog Day. And I thought, how many of us have had that kind of feeling? So I thought that's a great way for us to have that as our theme today, escaping Groundhog Day. Please join me in welcoming Jannie Almond. Jannie Almond.
Thank you so much, Vicki. I appreciate that intro.
So Jannie, I always start with a very easy question, and it is just tell everybody where you live. Where do you call home?
So currently, I'm actually in a small town, Sayulita in Mexico. I am home based in Canada, but I came here last year and fell in love. So I'm kind of living my best beach life for now.
Oh, how nice is that?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's sunny and beautiful there today.
Today, yes, actually, but last week was a little rainy. So,
Yeah.
It's not always a beach day.
Well, that just helps you appreciate the good days.
100%.
I just gave a lot of sort of your accolades, but I like to always have you talk about the story, your path, the journey that you had that brought you to where you are today in Mexico. Talk to us about your backstory.
Yeah. So, and I know you mentioned about escaping Groundhog Day. And usually a lot of the people I work with, their Groundhog Day looks something like a corporate 9 to 5, going home to the kids and the family, rinse and repeat. Mine was a little bit different, but mine was different in the sense that even though it might have appeared to others like I was living this exciting life, it wasn't, because I was living in a place with the same people doing the same things and just not really doing any sort of improvement on myself or my life. I had big dreams and I was not taking action on them. So at the time I had been having this big dream to live in Europe. So I was living there and I was teaching English online because it was a safe thing I knew how to do. And I didn't love it, but I was really good at it. And so just like anyone else would wake up, go through the motions, do the things, then I would, meet up with friends, and it was the same. It just felt like the same thing week after week, day after day. And I wasn't living with any purpose. I wasn't working on improving myself. I had this goal of wanting to start my own business, and I just wasn't actually taking any action on it. It was just that dream that I would tell everybody and not actually do anything about. And so that was where my Groundhog Day, is very similar to the people I work with, and how, fundamentally it took me really having to essentially have everything fall apart for me to finally take action and have that be the catalyst where it's like, oh, well, if everything's going to fall apart and everything is going to change, I might as well use that as like the real push over the edge to finally do what I'm always saying I want to do.
Wow. So what took you from Canada to Mexico, though?
Um, it's funny, like I'm going to say this because it's true, like every good Canadian, we come down here for the cheap dental work. But then I fell in love with a small town, met some people, and I just thought, one of my other big dreams was that I've been trying to visualize and manifest was to live by the beach. And so when I came here and just really felt like this was a place where I could start to realize that dream and that manifestation, it just kind of naturally fell into place and made it work.
I think too, whenever you take yourself out of the day-to-day culture that you were used to and you immerse yourself in another culture, it allows you, I think, sometimes to focus more on you and your purpose.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's that idea of surrounding yourself in an environment where, I can go to the beach every day and that brings me such inspiration. I go out there, I read a book, and I just have these downloads of creative inspo that just kind of keep me in that really activated mode. So that's something that I was not having necessarily up in Canada in the cold in a home.
No.
Yeah.
So how can you help your client craft their message more effectively using storytelling?
Yeah, so this is actually something I'm really passionate about because I've personally just seen it completely change my business. Frankly speaking, a lot of the people I work with, it's not their first rodeo. They've invested in courses and programs and coaches before, and they've been taught to do content in a way that it's very much to teach or educate. And there's kind of this, how would I say, dryness. Yes, exactly. I mean, I have a background in academia and I read some of it and I'm like, oh my God, this sounds like a college kid essay, snooze fest. And again, that's what they've been told to do. So it's not their fault. But what ends up happening is everyone writes the same kind of content and it just gets lost in the shuffle and it really doesn't propel them forward in any way. And so usually they feel like they're giving all their secrets or they're giving out all this information and it's just leading them into the ground, into nowhere. And so what I have found for myself and what I've also seen happen for my clients is that when they start opening up about who they are, about their story, people will resonate. And that's what actually makes you stand out. And looking back at even how I've made some of my decisions on, who I've decided to invest in and how I've decided to work with people, it's been based on their story. It's been based on something that they said that was not a tip or a trick. It was about something that I read about them that made me laugh and say, I love that too. Or, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I want to talk to this, I want to talk to this person. So that's really been where I've seen, the biggest growth in my own journey and how I help my clients also be able to kind of break free from just blending in with the crowd and everybody else that's trying to get attention in the online space.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I had worked with somebody and they were a researcher and they were from another country. So they wanted to, as you said, they were so used to academia that they wanted to present all the facts and figures and charts and everything. The audience, though, and what do we tell our folks? Know your audience. Their audience was a mixture and very few academia. So we in the audience were hungry for stories of what drove this person to do this research and stories of what she found through the research, not the research, just what she found. And so it was, as you said, a very dry presentation for an hour.
Yeah.
And there were very few stories in that. And so one of the things, that I coached her with was the stories that she could have, like she dipped her toe in the water, but she just did not take it further.
Right.
So I agree with you. Storytelling in anything that we do brings heart, makes us see ourselves in the story, makes us engage, makes us laugh, makes us cry, all that.
Absolutely. And it's really, sometimes I think the scariest part of
Oh, yeah.
marketing and having your business is being open with who you are, because again, it's more traditional to keep a mask and to almost have your professional self and then your personal self and keep those completely compartmentalized. And then when you're trying to, build your business and market yourself, especially using social media and on the online space, allowing yourself to break that wall and people to see who you really are, it goes against what we've been ingrained to
Yeah.
do.
And it's less stressful just being yourself.
Yeah.
Tell your stories,
Yes.
be vulnerable. Yeah. So what are some of the common mistakes that you found as you coach people, whenever they first start with you? What are some common mistakes that you see?
Sure. So the first, maybe not so much a mistake, but the first block is absolutely what we just discussed. They don't want to share too much, and leading into that is, or they say, okay, I'll be vulnerable, I'll be open. And it goes into like TMI land, where then it goes into like this like spiraling struggle story where it's not really inspiring, because it sits too much in like, oh, and then this went wrong and this person is evil. And it kind of is in that low vibe,
No
kind of,
roller coaster ride there, huh?
yeah. It's more of just like, okay, now we know all your dirt. But like really what the goal with this storytelling is to help people see what's possible. And without getting into necessarily the nitty gritty, but also really focusing on the shift and the change and the transformation. And so what happens is a lot of people end up either not wanting to share anything, or they go too much into like what something was like before, or a struggle or something that was really hard for them. And they spend so much time in there, and then they just kind of breeze over how they were able to transform their lives and end up in an end result that would be for someone listening or reading would be like, well, wow, like they went from that to being able to do this. That's really, I want that. Instead, they focus more on, oh, that person just, sounds like they had a bad time.
Yeah. And how, talk about having your story not be the center of the story, if you will. Sometimes you'll see speakers and it's I,
Oh my God.
and therefore I can't see me in that.
Mhm.
How important is using we, you, they in a
Right.
story?
And just setting the scene, that's actually brought up one of the best tips that it was pointed out was exactly that. When you're writing, especially in written content, if you write I a lot, the reader actually doesn't see themselves in that. But if you say my, and you use like very visual, visceral language, then that actually absorbs the reader. And that is what really draws them in and gets them essentially emotionally invested in your
Yeah.
story. And you're right. If you just continue, that's another huge mistake that you actually just, I'm sure you see it a lot, because I know you said you like storytelling. People will do I. And what really happens is, as the reader, unless I really care about the person or already like the person, I don't really care about their
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I know. And it's hard for people to understand that, even, if it really is a very, poignant point of their lives where it was life-changing for them, but you have to somehow not make the main character you somehow, some way. It has to be that stress you went through, that problem you overcome, and focus maybe on more on the solution. So
Mhm.
talk to us about you say that you believe that there is power in careful strategizing when creating the right message. Strategizing and how many of you out there, I want to know, are strategizing in making the correct message? But it's really true. So talk to us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So, and again, going back to what we just said, thinking about your ideal client or your customer and who they are, so many times what I've noticed is people come with the same kind of very surface level things. Oh, the person is this age, they're, married, not married, they have, this, that. But really, if you think about their business or you think about what they actually are desiring or who they want to attract, those kind of like surface level demographic information, those details are not really that important. I mean, now in some businesses they are, right? So but those are kind of more the exception and not the rule. An example of this would be someone who wants to help, a relationship coach who wants to help people have heal from toxic relationships and have a healthier relationship, moving forward, find a lasting relationship. I've worked with a lot of people like this. And it's one thing to say, okay, well, I do want to work specifically with people who have been through a divorce, because that might be a different level of a relationship than someone who just has had a lot of smaller short-term relationships that ended sour. Okay, that's fair. That is something that would make sense. But whether the person is 45, 40, 35, or even 25, would that really make a big difference in how you're able to serve them? And usually it doesn't, because the whole point of you serving them isn't based on an age in their life. It's more of like an experience that they've gone through and what they want on the other side. And so, a lot of the people I work with, when we go really deep with our ideal clients and really what the desires are. And then, really not just, oh, they want to have, they want to get married again. No, it's what they really want is a lasting marriage that's a healthy relationship where they feel valued, respected, seen, heard, etc. And that then transcends a lot of this really fluffy, what I call, surface level content, where it's like, designed for a person who they think wants to see and hear that, but it's not actually resonating with anybody. So when I say that you strategize the messaging, it's by going like really, really deep with how you're approaching who you want to speak with. And it's not just, oh, they need to be in like a 5-year age range and, live in the suburbs and have 2 dogs. Like that doesn't matter.
So whenever you get that message, how important is it to look at it and tweak it? Don't, just because it worked for the first year or something, how important is it to pivot as you grow and develop and expand?
Absolutely. Great. And that's so important because, especially if you're doing online marketing, and a lot of my clients are obviously online, there are so many trends and fads and shifts, and it changes so rapidly, like way more than I would say traditional advertising and marketing does, that you really need to be flexible and allow yourself to shift. And like you said, pivot. So for example, if you have been speaking to one type of client and one type of person, but then because of just trends that are happening in the online space, talking to speaking in that same messaging might not resonate because people are shifting how their belief system is, or people are shifting the language patterns they're using, or what's resonating with them. And so, I keep going back to this relationship example, but, a few years ago, this idea of, oh, are they a narcissist was really big. And now it's going to shift in more like attachment styles and, oh, what attachment style do they have? And if you're not able to keep up with those changes, you can really start alienating yourself. And essentially your messaging and who you're talking to, it'll start to fall on deaf ears, or it just seems a little bit outdated. So you want to make sure that you're able to still talk about your core issues, but update it for the changing trends.
So I think a lot of the reasons people get stuck in messaging is they don't really have a consistency to their habits, their daily to-dos or whatever. So what are 2 to 3 daily habits that you can incorporate into their messages and engage, or to improve our messaging and our engagement? Things that, I don't know, keep you on task.
Yeah. And I'm going to be this might be a little bit, how would I say? There was a word I was going and I lost it. Sorry. Anyways, unorthodox. There it is.
There you go.
Yeah, there it is. One of the first things I would do is actually do a lot of reading on your topic. Go to blogs, go and see what people are, go on social media and find people who are doing similar things and find what are they talking about? What are the trends you're noticing? Not to say you want to compare. And now this is where you have to be very careful because you don't want to get into like comparing yourself. But for example, if you are a copywriter, then starting to look at, you know, not your direct competition, but going and finding, I don't know, Instagram Reels or TikToks where other copywriters who are maybe more well established or more well known share what they've been seeing as trends in the copywriting scene. Start looking at some of the bigger coaches or people who are the trendsetters in the online space and seeing what they're talking about, seeing how their copy is evolving and shifting. So it's essentially doing a little bit of research and allowing yourself to do it from the lens of what, like keeping a pulse on what people are talking about and how they're speaking. So that's first and foremost, because then you can start to really shift. Another big thing I do, and I really enjoy doing, is that's a little more unorthodox, is really trying to get my audience to speak with me directly. So people who are either past clients or, you know, people that I've worked with previously, people that have been in my audience and have always been very engaged. Sometimes I'll just open it up to have, you know, short 15-minute conversations with them and just kind of see where they're at. And again, listening from their perspective, what their own words are, how they're viewing things, what their challenges are, and, you know, just really absorbing that so that way you can use that in your own messaging. And then of course, I would always say, making sure that you're asking questions to your current clients, and getting feedback, because the consistent feedback is going to help you know exactly what's going to resonate with that next person who wants to work with you, that just maybe needs that extra little reassurance or that extra little push. And so that's another way that I really make sure that you are able to get your message heard by the right people. And it's not just, again, getting stuck in, oh, this worked 3 years ago, I'm just going to keep doing the same thing, wondering why it stops working. Because the people who are essentially, you're using the people who are in your audience or who are already, you know, experts and who already have some level of visibility and are trendsetters, and are using them to help guide and influence you.
Yeah, the saying that we used to say all the time was, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But the problem is that it gets stale, you know, and so it's not to say to throw all of it away, but maybe find things to freshen up what your message is, as long as it's still meeting. But really throwing those questions out to see, or watching how people are reacting to those things, that those people that you admire, that you watch yourself, you know, what are people saying in the reaction to what they're saying, gives you an idea of what you might be able to discuss and put out there.
Right, exactly. It just keeps you more or less ahead of the curve. And so, and that's really what it's, again, also going to make you stand out, is because there are so many people who stay stuck in the same tactic or the same strategy that worked for, you know, 3 years ago, and then they don't update it. And then it just essentially falls on deaf ears, and you don't want to help it.
And it's safe. You know, we like to be safe. And, you know, if it doesn't work, not everything we do, not every post we put out is a winner.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
You know, it's not to say that somebody won't still follow you. Make a mistake every once in a while, and they'll follow you more because they're waiting for that next mistake, you know, whatever it works.
And you know what's interesting about that? Sometimes it's so often than not, sometimes we might not think, oh, like no one saw that post or no one cared about it because you didn't get a lot of likes, or you didn't get any kind of, there weren't a ton of comments. But those will sometimes be the posts where in a private conversation, someone will reference it. And someone will say, oh my gosh, I'm so like, I really appreciate that you said that. Or you're right, maybe you do a post where you're like, oh, that was, maybe I kind of regret doing that. But keeping it up there, because then you can share that story and share about like, oh, in the past I did say that, but now my viewpoint has changed and here's why. Or here's how I have evolved. And then that's just a level of authenticity, instead of just, you know, completely creating an image of perfection all the time.
So we don't want to stay in that Groundhog Day. You
No,
know,
definitely
we
not.
want to be able to step out of our comfort zone. And if you need help with your messaging, you know who to call.
Absolutely. Oh, and
All
just,
right.
I was just going to say one last tip, because I know you had asked task and I remember. Yes, it was, and I'll leave on this. If you like, my number one tip for somebody who's feeling like they are like, I need to freshen things up, but I just feel uninspired, is get outside of your regular workspace, find somewhere new,
Oh, yes.
watch the creativity just come to you. And that is something you can do today, right now, to get out of Groundhog Day, first and foremost. So anyways, with that being said, I just wanted
That's
to
perfect. Yeah, that's absolutely perfect. Take a walk around the block. I don't know, clean the bathroom, whatever you're doing if you're working from home, something different, because and especially if it's a mindless task, it's even better, because then your mind will wander to what you needed to find as a solution. So perfect.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Let me share my screen so that you can all get contact information. One moment. All right, so you should see my screen. Those are just listing, you know the drill. You should have taken notes from the very beginning, but if you have not, you can go to my YouTube channel, Vicki Noethling, and please subscribe, or go to findyourleadershipconfidence.com, and you'll see all this information in this slide. But I'm going to let, excuse me, I'm going to cough. Jannie, please share some information about your call to action after I give the website, which is gingerseeds.com. Gingerseeds, that's SEEDS.com. On Facebook, it is, I'll spell it JANNIE, Johnny, and then Jannie, I'll get it.
Okay.
At Jannie.gingerseeds. So take that website, gingerseeds.com, and add her first name. So Jannie.gingerseeds. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Jannie to talk to you about her call to action of things that you will find when you go to her website or going to that Facebook page.
Sure. So my website will have, a free training that if you're interested in learning a little bit more about how to create powerful storytelling in your marketing, there's a free training that you can find through my website. You can also find information on my course where we dive deep into how to incorporate storytelling and other messaging tips and tricks to make your marketing feel a lot easier. And then also you're welcome to go into my Facebook group. And this is my Facebook group. You can find it at facebook.com/groups/keep it super simple. And this is where I actually share just some tips, content, and trainings for members so that they can make sure that they are keeping the systems and the tasks that they're doing in their business simple so that they continue to do it consistently. And it feels really easy to have a successful and sustainable business.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being such a great guest. You gave, a lot of great information for our guest, lots of good tips, things that, you don't have to spend hours or weeks or months on.
Yeah.
But if you are stuck, please reach out to Jannie. Go to her website, check out her Facebook group, see what they have to say there. You might be able to troll around and get some good points. I'm going to cough. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
Oh,
thank you, Vicki.
As always, I really thank you for being a wonderful guest.
Thank you, Vicki. I appreciate your time and I appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. As I always say, life is a journey. It's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling, signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.